This is East Midlands Today. I'm Anne Davis. Tonight, a special programme marking the role of British troops in Afghanistan. I'm here at Kendrew Barracks in Rutland with some of the families who are spending Valentine's Day thousands of miles away from their loved ones.
And here in southern Afghanistan, I'm Jeremy Ball with hundreds of troops from the East Midlands. Tonight, we're out with the last British soldiers in the capital of Helmand Province.
There's always going to be that risk of IEDs, vehicle-borne IEDs, etc., coming down the main route that we can't stop.
Here in Rutland, staying positive, how the families cope as their men face those dangers thousands of miles from home.
Plus, an army packing up and heading home, and a dad who's just missed Christmas.
It's hard. It is hard because you miss them every day.
Hello, welcome to Cottesmore here in Rutland. I'm here at Kendrew Barracks, which is the home of 2nd Battalion Royal Anglians Regiment. Do you know hundreds of troops from this barracks are spending the winter in southern Afghanistan? It's the largest deployment of troops from the East Midlands since the conflict began 12 years ago. And it involves 2 regiments that recruit from our area. They recruit from Derbyshire, Leicestershire and Lincolnshire. All these families obviously anxiously waiting for their loved ones to return. We're going to be talking to them in a few minutes' time, but first of all we're going to try and join up with our reporter Jeremy Ball. He's been out there with cameraman Adam Walker. They've spent the week there speaking to the troops.
Yes, good evening from Camp Bastion. This is an absolutely vast British base. To give you some idea of the scale, it's not much smaller than the city of Derby. It's a place where the army's packing up to head home, but for many troops from the East Midlands, this is a mission that's far from over.
If you look into the map board then, this is the southern wall here.
8 a.m. at forward operating base Lashkargah, and we're kitted out for a safety briefing that makes you sit up and listen.
Should we come there, anything small arms fired during this patrol? And we're not...
All this for a short walk to the provincial police headquarters where the Royal Anglians have been helping to train the local Afghan uniformed police. Now those local officers are keeping this city relatively secure and open for business on their own, and soon there won't be any British soldiers here to help. It's only 200 metres between these 2 bases, but as you can see we're very exposed here and they're not taking any chances. Overnight they found 2 improvised bombs, or IEDs, in this city. There's a threat from suicide bombers too, but some people wave at us and greet us.
It's easy to get into a false sense of security out there, so people wonder why we wear our full kit, but there's always going to be that risk of IEDs, vehicle-borne IEDs, etc., coming down the main route that we can't stop.
There's been a report of a VBID.
Inside Police HQ, a warrant officer from Loughborough and a corporal from Anstey live and work with the Afghan forces. They're here to share intelligence about security threats.
It takes time, to build up the rapport with them. But once you do establish the rapport, and you can get a really good working relationship with them, and they've got a very similar sense of humour to ourselves. They do enjoy a good laugh.
Back at the main base, they've been waking up to this: desert sand covered in frost, and a meal tent protected by what's known as a guardian angel. And because the kitchens have just closed down here, this is breakfast: hot chocolate in a water bottle and boil-in-the-bag ration packs. It's because most British forward bases have already been closed. This one's well on the way to being pulled down, and the Royal Anglians will be the last British soldiers in Lashkargah.
If you could imagine an ISO container size, there's been about 700 ISO container size equipment that's left this base so far. Porta cabins, ISO containers themselves, vehicles.
From Lashkargah to Camp Bastion, it's a 20-mile journey, less than the distance between Leicester and Nottingham, but you travel by helicopter to avoid using roads where insurgents can set up an ambush. Now those insurgents are being targeted by local Afghan security forces who are taking over combat operations from their British mentors, and Derbyshire soldiers from the 9th 12th Royal Lancers are supporting them in hostile territory and coming under fire.
A bloke just appeared from nowhere and fired an RPG, and it just came straight over the top of us. We've been under a few contacts. It's pretty scary, my first one.
Pretty much every mission has had some success with it. I'd be finding drugs, targeting the IED networks, finding IED components, and yeah, we've had a lot of success for us.
But now they're focusing on the mammoth task of ending combat operations. They're scrapping a lot of equipment that isn't cost effective to send home. Then there's this machine that sounds like a popcorn maker. It's recycling 20,000 bullets every week. That noise you can hear is the sound of the explosive rounds getting blown up. The metal bullet casings come out of the machine like this. They'll be melted down and sold as scrap. More than 3,000 vehicles are being deep cleaned and repaired. Half have already been sent back to the UK. And engineers from Chilwell in Nottinghamshire, who designed this huge base at Camp Bastion, are back here to take it down.
I was out here in 2006 and helped build some of the camps that are still here today. It was quite a surreal feeling going back to somewhere you'd lived at for that long and actually stood in the position where my tent used to be that was now gone, and seeing all the land stripped out. So yeah, it was very, very strange feeling.
Thousands of British troops have already left Afghanistan, and by the end of this year, it'll be another chapter in Britain's military history. And it isn't until you travel out here that you realise just how tough conditions are for the soldiers. At night at the moment, the desert sands here are getting covered in ice. Far tougher though is being away from home for so long, and of course that's just as hard for their families back in the East Midlands.
It is indeed, and I'm with some of those families back in the East Midlands right now. Let me introduce you to Jonathan, Kaylee and baby Ruby, who so far has been really good. And if you're wondering why it's quiet, we've come into the soft play area here. It's quite a respite from next door, isn't it? Good to be home.
Yeah, it is.
Now tell me, how old was this young lady the last time you went?
She was 24 hours old.
What was it like leaving her then?
Quite horrible, to be fair, especially leaving the boys as well.
Yes, you've got two boys who are being awfully good as well, just playing over there. How old are they?
One's 2, one's 3.
Good to have him home.
Lovely.
Oh, fantastic. And if we come over here, we introduce you to Maurice and Amber, who have been reunited for Valentine's. How happy are you?
Yeah, really happy. It's lovely.
First time in how long?
3 years we're spending at school.
3 years.
It's going to be a romantic occasion for you.
Be a decent night. Be a decent night.
And is it good to be back for you too?
Yes. Yeah.
Back for good now? do you think?
Hopefully, yeah. There's an element of we may, but you know, we'll see.
Keep your hands on him now.
Yeah.
Well, what is it really like to be over there? Obviously, these guys know, but here's one soldier's story.
It's hard. It is hard because you miss them every day. I've missed the cheeky little sort of banter that I get with my daughters. Christmas was a big one. I was away for Christmas. You know, not having Dad around on Christmas days is obviously a big thing for the girls, but it was just hard knowing that the girls were going to open their presents without you being there. I sort of employed my wife's parents to assist in getting her big present, so she didn't think she was going to get anything, but they turned up on Christmas Day with a present from me, which I was told she burst into tears about. So my wife's part in this, and I'm sure many wives' part in an operational deployment is massive. They keep the houses running, keep the kids going to school, and they've also got the concerns of what we're doing at the time. You worry every day. Obviously there may be something which they might need your help with. Looking forward to going home is definitely one of the sort of big points, because it's a massive moment. There'll definitely be tears. There's always tears when it comes to when you're leaving to go on tour. You know, both sides try to fight back the tears, but you know there's going to be tears. And then when you get back, it's almost tears of like elation, if you like. It's all over and you can get almost back to normal life.
And here is Sergeant Freeman's wife, Joanne, and Chloe and Tamsin. Hello, girls. What was it like seeing that film of him, eh?
It was really nice, and it was nice to see where he's been living for the past 4
Did that shock you at all? Because it was so cramped, wasn't it?
Yes, it did, because he doesn't really show the pictures or tell you what it's like, really. So it was interesting to...
I thought it was really lovely as well, of the importance you put on your role back home, keeping everything going.
Yeah, it's quite nice to hear that, I think, because it's quite hard being left back at home and obviously wondering what they're doing. So it's quite nice to hear it, to know that you're doing a good job.
I mean, it's been a difficult time over there and you've had to sacrifice quite a lot. In your mind, is it worth the sacrifice for you and your girls?
Some days it's kind of questionable, but yes, of course it is. You have really hard days where you think, oh no, this is really hard, but it is, yes. When they come back and you see the look on the girls' faces when he walks through the door, it's really nice, and it's just one of those special moments that, you know, I know that their daddy's away, but when he comes back, it's lovely. So.
I know it's Valentine's Day and you're on your own. Have you had a load of those?
A fair few, yes, a fair few. So we get used to it. We kind of made our own Valentine's cards for each other, didn't we? And we'll make Daddy's for when he comes home.
Just tell me, girls, was it nice to see Daddy on the television?
Yeah.
Yeah, and are you looking forward to him coming home?
Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely.
We've made some cards for him.
You've made cards for him? Well, that's fantastic. Thank you very much for speaking to me. Thanks, Joanne. We look forward to when he comes back. For now, we'll hand you back to Dominic in the studio.
And thank you for now, Colin Hazelden. That is your news and sport, so it's goodbye from me. Let me hand you back now to Anne with her army families in Rutland. Anne.
Yeah, thanks very much, Dominic. Welcome back to the Royal Anglians home base here in Rutland. This is Captain Nick Barron, and little Oliver has been very good until this moment. We're going to be chatting to him in a minute because he's going back very soon. One of the thousands of men and women who've served out in Afghanistan. And, you know, it's been some of the toughest fighting that the British Army has experienced since World War II. Many of them, of course, as we know, have lost their lives. Well, Jeremy Ball has been following for the last 12 years, really, and now here's his take on their achievements.
When you come and watch the troops preparing their weapons here, it's easy to forget why they ever ended up in a desert so far away from home. It was all because of the 9/11 attacks in New York, attacks that were coordinated right here in Afghanistan, and the response to those attacks came within weeks. Soldiers from Leicestershire and Lincolnshire were among the first to arrive here after Afghanistan's brutal Taliban government was forced out of power. They found a capital city shattered by decades of civil war. I took these photos in Kabul 12 years ago. These children came up to shake hands. The Royal Anglian soldiers didn't even need to wear helmets. And we found this makeshift school where girls were being educated for the first time in years. Last autumn, Afghanistan finally had something to celebrate when the country won its first international football tournament. And for many, life has improved here, so much so that millions of Afghan refugees have come home. But what's in it for us? I put that to the government minister in charge of Britain's armed forces.
Our troops, as well as supporting the Afghan people, they've been helping to protect people back home from terrorist threats. They've been fighting to help keep us and our families safe. I believe ultimately it has been worth it.
And here in Helmand Province, soldiers from Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire were getting drawn into battles on a daily basis. This is what happened when I filmed a patrol with the Mercian Regiment 5 years ago. This exchange of fire was so routine that they cracked jokes about how close the bullets came, but it was deadly serious. And it's the photos of troops who've been killed that bring home the real cost of this conflict. These are the faces of 23 men who came from the East Midlands, victims of a war that's also claimed the lives of thousands of civilians. Kieran Hill was from Nottingham.
I think there's been too many people that have had massive sacrifices, not only those that have lost their boys or girls, but also those that have lost limbs, suffering from post-traumatic stress. It's not worth it for me. I've lost too much. Maybe it has stopped terrorism, I don't know, but it's destroyed my life.
Kieran's commemorated on this memorial here at Camp Bastion, and the debate about what's been achieved won't end when the last British troops go home later this year. The question now, what of Afghanistan's future? Who'll be in charge after next month's elections? And will the sacrifices of so many British troops make a lasting difference here? Jeremy Ball, BBC East Midlands Today at Camp Bastion.
Jeremy there reporting from Helmand Province. As we said, Captain Nick Barron here is about to go up. When do you go?
Approximately 2 weeks.
Approximately 2 weeks. So you've got some of your kit laid out here. This, by the way, is Lisa, who's mum. And if little Oliver gets too fed up, she's going to go to mum. I mean, this is just a tiny bit, isn't it?
Yeah, just a snapshot. We take over 45 kilograms of kit and weapon systems on top of that, so all designed to help us out, really.
And this is your, I mean, I can hardly hold that. That's your body armour,
That's our body armour plate carrier, so we'll get plates issued in Afghanistan when we get out there to add extra weight.
So that'll be even heavier than it is now.
Even heavier than it is now, yeah.
I mean, these are the things you have to take with you. But What are the things that mean something that you take as well?
Things that I really like to take: iPads, cameras. Every person's different, but for me, it's that connection with my family back home and being able to speak to Oliver on Skype or what it is.
I guess that's made a big difference actually for soldiers. If you can Skype, you can actually see people back at home. It's so different to just a letter, isn't it?
Oh, a huge difference. Yeah, the internet and welfare provisions out there are amazing, and people can speak and see each other all the time. So it's great.
And how do you prepare mentally for going? Because I know it's a job, but there are dangers, and you know what they are.
I think our training has made us confident in the fact that we know we can do the job. I mean, every person's different. For me, the last time I went, I was single, no family. Now it's different. I've got a family. So I think you just get yourself into a position where you just look forward to coming back. You want to do the job to the best of your ability, and knowing that you've got a family at the other end, that helps.
We wish you all the luck. We wish you luck too, Lisa, that it comes back safely. Let's go back and see what the weather's doing. Here's Kay.
Thanks very much, Annie. Well, the weather's been a lot nicer in Afghanistan compared to back home here. Now it's back to Anne.
Well, that's just about it from all of us here at Kendrew Barracks. I must say a huge thank you to everybody who's organised it, and for all the families who've been here all evening. They had a great fish and chip supper a little bit earlier on, and the kids have been really, really good. So a big thank you to everyone here. And as I keep saying, it is that romantic day in the year, isn't it? It's Valentine's Day. And it wouldn't be Valentine's Day if there weren't a few special messages. And as we're here, we need to take those messages all the way from the Afghan desert. From all the team from East Midlands Today, enjoy your Valentine's, but from us for now, good night.
A quick message to my wife, Gemma Evans. Sorry I'm not going to be there on Valentine's Day, but we'll make it up to you when we get back.
I'm missing my beautiful fiancée, Annabelle Goodall, and I'll be glad to see you very shortly.
Okay, so for my wife, Ailey, just to say miss you, happy Valentine's, I love you loads, and I look forward to spoiling you when I get back.
This is to Sarah, my wife. I just want to say happy Valentine's Day. I wish I could be there with you.
Can't wait to get home and see you, Marie. Should be home for Valentine's Day anyway, but I love you.
All right, Charlie, quick shout out to my wife. Obviously, missing you loads. I hope everything's going well back there. See you real soon.
Happy Valentine's to my lovely wife, Samantha Musson, and to my kids. Thank you.
Okay, Joe, sorry I'm not there on Valentine's Day. I'm missing you loads, and I love you lots as well, and hopefully I'll be back soon.
The Army's commander in Helmand Province has told us that troops from the East Midlands have made a huge contribution to the military campaign. Hundreds of soldiers from Leicestershire and Derbyshire are deployed on operations this winter. Some troops are helping the Afghan police protect the city of Lashkargah. Others are targeting insurgents who are using deadly improvised bombs.
One can look back over the history of our time here in Afghanistan and see the role that's been played by regiments such as the Royal Anglian Regiment and the 9th 12th Lancers. Their contribution has been really valued, and you can see the changes and you can see the progress that's been made on the ground here in Helmand.
Now, next tonight, the East Midlands soldiers who run the gauntlet of deadly roadside bombs in Afghanistan.
Yes, they're drivers, and it's their job to carry supplies through Helmand Province in convoys which are regularly attacked.
Well, one of them is Corporal Andy Betts from Wigstone in Leicestershire. He's among a group of Army reservists from Loughborough and Grantham who've been deployed on what the military calls combat logistics patrols. Our social affairs correspondent Jeremy Ball has more.
Imagine getting stuck behind this lot when you're trying to get to work. More than 50 heavily armoured trucks travelling in convoy. On this combat logistics patrol, a reservist from Leicestershire whose day job's delivering clothes for a high street fashion chain. A chance to get away from the traffic jams and face some different challenges.
It's more small arms fire and IEDs more than anything, but because of the makeup of the armour on the vehicles, we're pretty much protected from everything. There has been a lot of change to all the bases we deliver to, and because they're closing down now, the size of them basically is shrunk to what we go to now, and it's fascinating to see.
They're collecting millions of pounds worth of sensitive equipment, including weapons, vehicles and power plants. That makes these patrols a prime target for the Taliban.
That's why these huge force protection vehicles are pushing rollers in front of them. They're designed to take the force of a blast if they hit an improvised bomb. In fact, the protection's so good that hundreds of British soldiers have survived IED strikes.
The latest threat they're facing is known as a pillow IED, a sack full of explosives that's thrown underneath their vehicle, an occupational hazard for John Pritchard, whose family's back in Ruddington.
I wasn't expecting the bang when it went off, so that was a bit jumpy, but a lot of the kids, you get 50% of them will wave at you, the other half will throw stones at you or shout stuff to you or gesture to you.
What surprised you most?
Probably having 6 people on one motorbike. It's quite crazy. Just the way they live, there's, the way they drive, it's all just quite mad,
As this mission comes to an end, the Army's becoming increasingly reliant on its reservists from Grantham and Loughborough. But for Andy Betts, going back to delivering clothes might just seem a bit tame after his stint out here. Jeremy Ball, BBC East Midlands Today at Camp Bastion.
You're watching East Midlands Today, and next this evening, 2 soldiers in a war zone are making plans for their wedding day. Kiri Bashford from Derbyshire has been deployed to Afghanistan at the same time as her fiancé, Christopher.
And while he is out on frontline operations, she's keeping the regiment up and running from their base at Camp Bastion. Our social affairs correspondent Jeremy Ball reports.
Kiri Bashford's a woman in a man's world because female soldiers aren't allowed in combat roles, but she's part of a fighting regiment. As the military clerk to the 9th 12th Royal Lancers, Kiri sorts all the flights to their bases and makes sure they get paid.
When I first joined, it was a very big man's world, but now it's like I've joined in, I'm part of the group. One of the lads, I teach PT with the lads, so I get a little bit more respect from that as well. And plus I'm paying them, I'm sorting their payout. So if they try and do something that's, or if they try and get me offside, then they're not going to get paid.
And when Kiri's off duty here at Camp Bastion, she's planning a wedding. Her fiancé, Christopher Hobson's a soldier in the 9th 12th Royal Lancers too. Christopher's part of the Warthog Squadron, soldiers who use these armoured trucks on operations in hostile territory where they're searching for the Taliban's bombs.
Initially we saw each other sort of every week, but we've kind of settled into a not seeing each other routine, which is easier. They were trying to sort it out at the beginning of the tour for us to have a massive wedding out here and then sort of have a blessing at home. Fortunately for us, it wasn't allowed because it's a Muslim country, so we weren't allowed to do it, but I was happy about that. I think it was me that was the one that didn't want it. Everybody else in the regiment wanted it.
But they'll be well away from Helmand Province by the time they tie the knot. The wedding date's been set for August, only weeks after the last of the 9th 12th Royal Lancers finished their tour of duty. Jeremy Ball, BBC East Midlands Today in southern Afghanistan.
Well, that's the lighter side of politics there, but you can't get much more serious than our next topic. British troops have begun their withdrawal from Afghanistan, among them hundreds of soldiers from the East Midlands. The region's troops have played a major part in the conflict, and much of it's been documented by our correspondent Jeremy Ball. Well, now as the bases are wound down, he's been back to Afghanistan for a special report on the impact East Midlands soldiers have had.
This is Camp Bastion, the sprawling British base in the middle of the desert that was designed by engineers from Chilwell. Thousands of men and women from the East Midlands have been deployed here over the last few years, but now they're packing up to head home. It's called the Drawdown. It's already well underway. They're dismantling bases, loading containers and cleaning thousands of vehicles that are going to be sent back to the UK. But when I first came here 5 years ago, it was very different. It was all-out war. These soldiers from Derbyshire saw some of the British Army's toughest fighting since World War II. They've shown extraordinary courage, and more than 20 men from the East Midlands have lost their lives here in Afghanistan. So I asked the Army's commander here in Helmand Province what they've really achieved.
The role that's been played by regiments such as the Royal Anglian Regiment and the 9th 12th Lancers, their contribution has been really valued, and you can see the changes and you can see the progress that's been made on the ground here in Helmand. We originally came to Afghanistan because of the threat that was posed from this part of the world, which led to 9/11 and some of the attacks in London. And then ever since then there's been an operation to assist the Afghans in rebuilding their nation in order that they can have their own security forces that can prevent that threat from emanating from this part of the world again. But there still remains an underlying political issue here in Afghanistan, which is the source of the insurgency.
Some people will say the Taliban still have influence in this part of Afghanistan. We're withdrawing. We haven't won this war.
I think the reality is this is not about winning and losing. we can see that the military activity, the activity of ISAF troops and our British soldiers as part of that, has very successfully bought the Afghans time. That has allowed a secure environment in which they can recruit their army and their police, they can train themselves, and we've been able to deliver that training.
Do you think we could see the Taliban back in power in some form in Helmand Province?
I can see no sort of chance in here in Helmand. The people of Helmand overwhelmingly reject the Taliban. They can see that the government of Afghanistan have been able to deliver effective security, and they have also been able to deliver the functions of government that we would expect back in the UK. The Taliban offer none of that.
Since the Royal Anglians first arrived here 12 years ago, things have changed dramatically. Towns are open for business, girls are going to school, and millions of Afghan refugees have come home. But no one doubts there are going to be huge challenges when British troops leave later this year. So, will security here deteriorate? Could the Taliban be back in power? And will the sacrifices of so many troops from the East Midlands make a lasting difference here?
And you can see more of Jeremy's reports on Afghanistan on the BBC's website. Well, joining us now is John O'Lee, an ex-serviceman from Nottinghamshire who lost a leg when a landmine exploded in Afghanistan. Jono, it's great to see you. Jeremy did pose a very big question at the end of his report there. Were these sacrifices, including your own, were they worth it?
It depends what question you're asking, really. We needed to be out there, Afghan and Iraq, we needed to be out there. The government decided soldiers were to go out there, and at the end of the day, that's our job. We do what we're told and we go out there. It's a difficult one. It's a difficult question to answer. Depends who you believe, why we were out there. One person lost is one person too many.
And some people would say that we're coming out, but we haven't actually defeated the Taliban.
I've got to agree. I would like us to stay out there longer until the job's done, but I can't see the job ever being done, to be honest. And I think it's time that somebody brave enough to hold us the hands up and say it's time to leave. We're never going to complete it properly, so let's leave.
Okay. Well, as Jeremy said in his report, Anna, 20 deaths, 20 of our soldiers from the East Midlands have been killed. Was it worth it?
I think so, yes. I mean, it's very difficult, isn't it? Because obviously when you're with someone who's lost a son or a loved one or even a friend or a neighbour or whatever, or especially, and then again, when somebody's been injured, especially extremely badly injured, it is always difficult. But I think, on balance, yes, I think we did the right thing. We went in 2001. We know why we went in, which was to see off the Taliban and to reduce, hopefully destroy the threat that we'd seen with the 9/11 incident, and we knew that there were
whole
these,
reason for starting,
and that's why we went in, and it was all about the very real threat of terrorist cells that was existing in Afghanistan. And when you talk to some, as I have done, as you can imagine, people who are coming back, and I know it's fair to say people are going to put a good face on the whole of the thing, but one of the things that we have achieved is that there's a much better governance, a much better civil society now within Afghanistan. So when you quite rightly ask the question, will the Taliban come back in? One of the things that we have done is we've enabled the Afghan people themselves to
look
say,
after themselves.
you know, we can do this.
Margaret, was it the
We
right
don't
thing?
want
You
them.
were in the government that took us into Iraq and into Afghanistan.
I think one of the things everybody's tended to forget is that this was a United Nations operation. It was not just the US and the UK, it was about 30-odd countries, if I recall correctly, because everybody was so appalled after 9/11, not just by what had happened, but by the realisation this was a completely new kind of threat, which people hadn't anticipated. I mean, we have a lot of experience in this country when we had terrorism from Northern Ireland. But on the whole, people were not willing to actually kill them, you know, they were willing to take the risk of dying, but they weren't setting out to be killed, and it was all a completely new phenomenon.
With the cuts
so
that
yes,
we're
I think it
facing
was the
now
right thing to do, to go in.
With the cuts that we're facing now to the armed forces, Jono, could we mount that kind of operation now? Could we go into Afghanistan and do what we have done?
My personal opinion is no. I think we struggled originally to do what we did. We went out there with no kit. In Iraq in 2003, we didn't have the right kit. Iraq in 2006, yet again, we didn't have enough kit. We were going out on patrol with 3 magazines. In Afghanistan, we had 10,000 rounds when I went out on the...
Are the cuts going too far?
It's hard to say because I haven't got all the figures. I would like all the wastage in the MOD to to be sorted out, and then you'd probably find you wouldn't need as many cuts as are happening, to be honest.
We've cut personnel. In fact, we've increased the kit now. I mean, I think everybody agrees that the kit that the guys get, the vehicle, the complete new fleet of vehicles, it is exactly what they want. And when I go out, one of the things that, because you'll get soldiers in particular who always want to say to you, would you like to see our weaponry? And you say, well, I'm not really into weaponry. I want to know, have you got what you need? And they say, yes, we have got what we need.
But
so
what about
that's
these
good.
redundancies and
The
these cuts?
redundancies.
We're talking about reducing personnel,
That's right, very much so.
and the Gedling MP, Vernon Coker, Shadow Defence Minister, said this week that the redundancy programme should be put on pause. He said the cuts will leave us with 8,000 fewer soldiers than we need. Can we be doing this at this time, faced with the problems we have across the world?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we've gone through this review. We now look at this week in America, where they too have announced huge cuts. I mean, I'm surprised. I don't know whether Vernon's saying that the next government, if